Iodine. Let's talk about the Great Pyramid tonight.
Great pyramids, so many mysteries and so many unanswered questions. And I think you said it best yesterday. How many people even know 10% of the story regarding the Great Pyramid? I'd wager not many.
Not many who know about some of these old facts we used to talk about. We haven't really talked about them in, like a few years or so now since we really got deep dive into it together, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's common for people to know one or two facts about the Great Pyramid. Someone will hear something that's interesting, but that's really the end of it. And when you put it all together and look at it at one time, it really invites a lot of questions. And I think people need to start taking it a little more seriously. So let's dive into it.
Well, let's start on this first video just kind of touching on the basics, some of the extraordinary facts about it after we kind of cover the mainstream story a little bit. But yeah, it's just such a mystery, like the stranger in the corner of the tavern in a way, I guess, because there's other pyramids who are similar size, but when you really get into the heart of what's inside it, you're gonna be surprised, I guess, or I certainly have been amazed by it.
Absolutely. There's one thing that would be common for all pyramids, or there's characteristics that are common for all pyramids, like temperature regulation, right? The temperature inside the Great Pyramid allegedly never really changes. It's 68 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. But there's things that are unique about the Great Pyramid that the other pyramids, as far as I'm aware of, do not share. And whether that's other pyramids in Egypt or in other countries.
Well, this verse right here, I think we should. It's kind of hints at the way the universe works in a way, almost. Like, I think there's a lot of secrets, or a lot of people believe in spirits or ghosts or premonitions, or have weird things go on. But the skeptics might say, "Oh, it's just a coincidence," and then not really think about that we have a creator who is possibly interested in concealing stuff like that. It says, "It is the glory of Elohim to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter." Guess we're on a similar page,
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's talk about what the world is told about the Great Pyramid first. Basically, they want us to think that it's the product of an early Bronze Age pharaoh who constructed it using human slaves and hemp ropes or whatever he could find to put something like this together. I mean, can you imagine trying to build this even in modern time with modern cranes?
I heard that Japan tried to do a reproduction of the Great Pyramid in the 1970s with modern equipment, and they ultimately failed to do it.
Right.
And there's a lot of logistical problems around the various models. Some people think that they built a wall around the pyramid and flooded the cavern and then floated blocks up. Some people think they built a ramp. And, none of it's really that satisfying or that practical. I guess it's possible, but it's just not satisfying. And then the question of where the blocks came from also has always been a head scratcher. I mean, how does one cross the Nile with all these blocks? How do these blocks come from so far away? That might make zero sense to me.
Right, that's interesting you say that, because that's kind of what I was getting into next. And it basically, there's like 2.5 million blocks, right? And including Tura limestone, which allegedly came across the Nile River for some of it, and also solid granite stone weighing up to 80 tons coming from allegedly Aswan, over 500 miles away. But yeah, like you said, that might have been a Japanese car company that sponsored that, if I remembered right. They might have just gave up midway, probably not even barely after they got started, even though it was going to be a much smaller replica, So
Now, the city of Aswan is, it's upriver from where the pyramid is. So they could have conceivably used the Nile to transport these blocks, but I would need to educate myself more about shipping at that time. But I know that the Nile had problems accommodating the largest ships in existence, even in Roman times. The Nile
Right.
could not accommodate the largest ships then. So I personally don't know if an 80-ton block could be shipped on the Nile or not, but it seems like a lot.
And how about all these? How about all these blocks where these brothers are
Two
sitting in this
point five
picture right
million
here?
of them. Two
I
point
mean,
five million of them might be a totally different thing. Let's just try to imagine how many workers it would take to move one of these and how much time it would take by caravan or by boat.
just look at
It
this
might be
picture for a
daunting.
second. Like that's the first layer, okay? That looks like look how many stones it is. That's like one layer we're seeing the outside of. This goes on and on through to
Through
the
the
other
middle.
end, to the other end, basically. Other than little gaps and caverns, I guess.
It's one of history's greatest unanswered questions right now, and that should give people pause. I'm not sure that we have any answers for them on where the blocks came from, but it should immediately trigger to people that we don't know everything about this building. Um, what do you got next for us?
Actually, this allegedly had more stone than all of the cathedrals built, and like, let me see. I forget the exact fact I read, but just imagine more stones in this than all the cathedrals built since like the time of Christ or something like that. But yeah, let me go on.
I guess it's all the cathedrals built in England since the time of Christ to now,
Oh,
which
was
is
it England? You might
significant.
remember what I was talking about, or what we've talked about
Significant.
before.
Yeah.
Be something crazy. But now look at this picture right here. Isn't it interesting? If even the one right next to it, which is a roughly similar size, to be fair, I think the Great Pyramid's a lot more amazing when you get into the heart of both. But just looking at the outside of it, do you notice anything interesting about the top one? I guess we've talked about it before, but
It appears to have 8 sides, not four. So maybe not a lot of people know this, but each side has two faces.
isn't that interesting? An eight-sided pyramid. How much more complex does that just make the original design?
Right, that would add a lot of complexity to get this perfectly even on all 4 sides. And I guess they could say that it's structural in nature, even if the pyramid right next to it doesn't have it. In fact, this is the only pyramid built this way that I'm aware of. Do you know of any others?
Not a single one. And I've also heard that when they were originally smooth on the outside, because these are casing stone, or there were casing stones on the outside that we'll get into it in a bit, but they were allegedly the same curvature as the Earth itself. Like I don't know how that would be precisely measured. Who said that? I guess that's one of those things that people take with a grain of salt, looking more to yourself. But some of this stuff's going to be a lot more. You can look right for yourself, right at the mathematics, right at the satellite imagery. But yeah, getting back to what you said about, you were exactly right. Or this thing says representing more building material, so I guess that's even including wood and stuff, than is to be found in all the churches and cathedrals built in England since the time of Christ. Total mass more than 6.3 million tons. Wow.
It
Anyway,
says here that it covers 22 acres of stone. I mean, 22 acres
wow.
of stone. And that's just incredible.
Yeah, here's another picture that kind of shows two different sides of this whole eight-sided concept thing we're talking about. And what's interesting is that it was it during the time of the equinox that there's only one time of the year, so you can really see that from like satellites and planes because of the way the shadow is or something.
Oh, so it's not apparent that this is in the design most of the time.
Well, if you just had a bright light on the front of it, it's going to be really hard to see, and also, if darkness hard to see. But if you just have the right angle, like right around the time of the equinox, because it's coming from directly east or whatever. Yeah.
I see that in the black and white picture that you put up. The shadow is exactly aligned with the base of the pyramid, so it's coming right at the side. Well, so far that seems like an engineering feat that no one's been able to reproduce, but it's not mind blowing. I want to give people some mind blowing facts
Yeah,
about the Great
let's get
Pyramid.
to some of the really amazing stuff. But yeah, just getting back to that casing stone concept, a lot of people might not realize that the Great Pyramid used to be something like 25 or 30 or so feet taller than it is now, because there was an outer layer that made the whole thing smooth and white. And you can see right there. And that allegedly Muslims stole some of it after, or took some of it after their earthquake for their mosques, or one or more particular mosque or something.
Might have been some pretty good stones in there if you're trying to rebuild the whole city.
Just how beautiful is this, though? It's debated if the capstone was actually black or gold, or if heard both. You might have heard a different option.
I've heard both as well. I've heard from some people that it was carved onyx or something like that. I've also heard that it was electrum, which is an alloy of equal parts gold, silver, and copper. I would also buy that it was some other, I guess electrum would be incredibly conductive. But I would also buy that it's some other sort of lens material, some sort of glass, perhaps.
Now, I've also heard, even back in the day, you could actually see light coming from the area of Giza from Jerusalem, because that's how much the light shined on the sunlight, like off this huge white structure.
I looked up polished limestone, and people use it for floors even today and stuff, and it's incredibly reflective. I found a floor. Somebody has a floor in their house of polished limestone, and I can see reflections in it.
Yeah, here's some remnants that were still at the bottom. I'm not sure if that was why that would have been harder to take. I don't know if it's connected to the bottom or what, but could you imagine that whole thing just extended across the whole surface right there? How cool that would look. Be a lot harder to climb, huh?
Yeah, it'd be a lot harder to climb. And I guess the fittings between the stones are basically non-existent too, right? You can't even slip a piece of paper in there.
And that helps bring us to another thing too, because a lot of people might think this was the tomb that was entered a couple thousand years ago, 3,000 years ago, but it was actually after Islam that the world at large entered the Great Pyramid.
So it was kept sealed for most of history?
Well, they couldn't find an entranceway to it, and that's a whole story in itself, because they ended up just going at it without knowing where an entrance was, and they only found the main entrance once they came up from the inside, because it's hung on a hinge to where it's almost impossible to even find, let alone open from the outside. But if you're on the inside, it doesn't take much effort at all to open it.
That's incredible. So they forced their way in from a random part of the Great Pyramid.
Yep.
And then they walked out through the front door.
The same tunnel, maybe. So
now, how big is this door? This hinge door on the Great Pyramid?
We'll be coming up to that in just a moment. There's another image that kind of shows you what the casing stones would look like. Now let's look at this. These blocks of the bottom course exhibit much less damage and erosion, protected by sand and debris which has only been cleared a century ago. They are fitted with great precision and reflect, in my opinion, something closer to what most of the blocks above them would have looked like before receiving their facing stones. Again, there is no spacing between the joints. Notice how the fourth block from the left pops up slightly higher than its neighbors. Such incongruities are ubiquitous throughout the structure, yet the stones around them were cut to receive these endless anomalies in size and shape. Now, at first you might look at this and think, well, that makes it look less impressive because the stones aren't all even, but the casing stones on the outside were allegedly cut to perfectly fit over the rough inner side. It's almost like a metaphor for the human body in a way. Like, look how beautiful or how aesthetically pleasing a human being is on the outside generally compared to all the guts and the innards on the outside or the inside. It's interesting.
I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that they made it fit so perfectly with the casing stones after the inner sides were more natural or more organic looking, I guess you would say.
Do you think there's any similarities of that construction method in some of the walls that we see in South and Central America? They also use irregularly shaped walls that are perfectly fitted, right?
You might be onto something. How about we get more into that on a further video too, but I guess
that'll be a later video.
I guess you're talking about around South America, where it looks like the stones are actually made from a putty-like clay or like the stones themselves were made soft somehow to be able to fit perfectly or whatever. It's almost like it's not as pretty of a job, but it's almost like maybe somebody had similar technology later on and they tried to do similar things, even though it didn't end up as fancy and didn't have as much amazing mathematics incorporated into it. But yeah, here's an image related to that door I was talking about, how it, it's real easy to come at from the inside compared to outside, and it's almost like hidden because it's like pretty much smooth or whatever.
That's incredible. So when this door is closed, it just looks like a solid wall, and it can't be seen from the outside that this is a door. And then this weighs about 20 tons. Is that correct? So the door weighs roughly 20 tons, but it can be operated by a single person. Like, that's just incredible. I guess it can be done with stones,
you're right.
20 and hardnesses and
guess you're right.
Stuff like
20-ton door, so well balanced it could be. Yeah, can you imagine just like a little child pushing a 20-ton stone because of how it's designed? It'd be neat to see. I don't know if they left it like that. That might have been long since damaged. I'm not sure if that's still there, but I think they still go in actually through this tunnel that was the one to the one that was
I was just about to make a joke about that, thinking might as well keep using it. It's already there. It's kind of sad when that happens to historical things, but once it happens, what can you really do?
I'll get this. Even those archaeologists who still stubbornly subscribe to the tomb theory of the pyramid do not believe that a queen or anyone else was ever buried in the limestone chamber. The king's chamber is 10.46 meters east to west by 5.23 meters north to south by 5.81 meters high, which is actually a series of measurements that precisely expresses the mathematical proportion known as the golden mean, or phi, which we'll get back to later too. But how's that for a...
Wow, that's incredible. The golden ratio is hidden in the measurements of the king's chamber. It's absolutely incredible.
Do you know when the mainstream world was allegedly found phi? Can you look into that real quick if you don't already know? Do you know? I don't know. I don't think it's like this pyramid. Mainstream academia, I tell you, was before that, right?
Well, it depends on who you go to for discovering the concept, but some people credit Mark Barr in the early 1900s for discovering the relationship between the Fibonacci numbers.
Is that like when phi might have been discovered before then, though, right? Pi, at least. Let me look it up real quick. But it's just that's going to be a common theme throughout this, is that there's just stuff that they shouldn't have known according to the mainstream timeline.
Definitely agree with you there. Also, I was wrong about Mark Barr. It was him associating the symbol. Euclid discovered the ratio allegedly in 300 BC, so that might be a earlier date. But still,
300 BC. It's still supposed to be built over 2,000 years before that, or what, like 2,000 or 3,000?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good 2,000 years later, at least.
All right, and now the only thing basically in the whole Great Pyramid is this box. Like, people might think there were treasures found in there, maybe some bones, a skeleton. This is the only item I've ever heard about being in there, other than maybe like a dead animal or something like that, like or a bug or something.
The tomb theory really bothers me. Are we using the scientific method at all? When we say that this is a king's tomb, is there any data whatsoever to suggest that this is a king's tomb? No body was ever found. No inscription was ever found. no funeral mask, nothing related to the idea of this being a king's tomb has ever been found that I'm aware of. So, in what sense are we being scientific? It seems like a guilty by association. This other king in Egypt who came hundreds of years later built a similar structure and used it as a tomb. Therefore, we can conclusively conclude that this is also a tomb. That's not how the scientific method actually works. You can take guesses, right, people's culture, but I'm open to other explanations for the Great Pyramid and for the King's Chamber, so called. And I think there's so many weird things about the King's Chamber that suggest that maybe it has purposes beyond just a burial place.
Now, there was a discoverer named Richard Howard Weiss who allegedly did find some chalk that said some stuff, and this guy was apparently, he was under pressure to find like discoveries equal to his rival Caviglia, who had just found some inscriptions of the same tombs, or some of the tombs around the Great Pyramid. And then right when he's about to run out of funding, he's like, I found some chalk, guys.
Like, and if I remember correctly, they weren't hieroglyphs either. Is that correct? He found some chalk writing scrawled over a doorway or something like that, and it was 1 or 2 weeks before his funding was done. And then because of the discovery, he ended up getting his funding renewed, the way I remember the story anyway.
Yeah, it's a sketchy story all around. But getting back to this box, this is some of the solid red granite that was from Aswan, I guess close to 600 miles to the south, or this is the official story. And the tomb itself, excuse me, was the ones that weighed up to the 50 tons inside there. And the tomb, so it's solid red granite that the actual King's Chamber, this main chamber that we're talking about, was made from, and then the box is dark black granite, estimated at more than 3 tons. But can you imagine this little looking chamber that's about the size of a human body weighing 3 tons? Like, talk about some intense granite, right?
That's some strong granite right there. And granite is so difficult to cut through. What kind of tools did the Egyptians have that could cut through granite?
Well, if you look at the most skill of hardness, this would have required bronze saws, or like diamonds, or actually the bronze saws with like teeth of sapphires, excuse me. Or I guess diamonds.
Sapphires might be just right under diamonds in terms of hardness. If diamonds are the top at a 10, sapphires are a 9 on Mohs hardness scale. So, wow. So did they essentially have these 9-foot long saws made with sapphires or diamonds to cut this thing from one solid piece of granite? That might be quite an engineering feat even without the rest of the pyramid, just this thing.
And it's also said that hollowing out the interior of this thing would have required tubular drills of the same material applied with a tremendous vertical force. Like, what did they have back then to do something like that?
I don't know. You just get one of those manual egg beater things and glue a bunch of sapphires and on the end, and there you go, right? That's how science works. Does that sound right to you?
Sciences seem to become like a religion almost, or the mainstream academia version of it, I guess. Science itself is a beautiful thing, like, testing.
Absolutely.
Hypothesis. All right.
Yeah, it really comes down to the question of, are we truly using the scientific method to determine the things that we know, or are we just making some assumptions? And I found that a lot of my education was the latter. It was assumptions and best guesses by academics, and not necessarily actual employment of the scientific method. And I think that if someone applies the scientific method to the Great Pyramid or any part of the inside, I think they're going to have some surprises waiting for them.
I think you might be a little bit generous over there. I guess there's been a conspiracy at play, and I don't know. Some of it might just be human ignorance or wanting to fit it in with their previous worldview, but it's hard not to wonder if there's some shenanigans going on to suppress some things as well. But
So what are these blocks? So this is still the king's chamber, right? But we're looking at a series of 5 blocks as a roof.
well, there's talk of 50-ton blocks of the main chamber, which I'm assuming are the 4 right above this, whether it's including any of the sides one or the ones below. But it's basically a mystery because it's said that they were lifted and positioned using an area where only 4 to 6 workers could stand, when the strength of at least 2,000 would be needed. Now, I don't know what model they have to what was built first or this or that, but regardless, who's playing around with 50-ton stones using hemp ropes or whatever technology they had back 4,000 years ago, or, whatever.
Might be nothing
Not
but
4,000,
challenges.
it might be 4 or 5.
I mean, what do you build a frame out of wood and then take hemp ropes and use pulleys and stuff like that to lift? I mean, it's not impossible, but it might be very, very challenging. You'd have trouble building a frame that can withstand these kind of forces.
But getting back to this box, I guess you can see how smooth and beautiful. Like, the thing about this box, if that's the human body, like how it would fit inside there, weighing somehow, was it 3 tons?
I've always wondered about this. This is a mark from someone laying down. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if
clearly
that's
someone
dust.
kind of like laid down.
I'm
right?
not sure if that's somebody's imprint on some dust or what exactly that is, but either way, I guess it gives you a good idea how an average human would look inside the box, But
so a 3-ton block is basically a twin bed.
How would they cut this thing so smooth, though? Iodine and the Bronze Age, or 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. What would they have done to move this, let alone cut it? Like, there's actually a story. Napoleon spent a night alone in this chamber, and he emerged pale and dazed, like he would not even speak of his powerful experiences, only to say, "You would not believe me if I told you," quote, end quote.
What a master troll for all time,
What do you think he saw up there? You think he slept in that box and had some of the most wild dreams ever?
Yeah. I think he slept in that box right there, and my best guess is probably some sort of spirit contact or some sort of crazy dreams or something like that. There's stuff that we're going to be getting to in later videos about the Great Pyramid that explain why I think that.
Now, this might help show the how it's kind of hollowed out, or you could see how it's subtly curved, just like the Earth itself is. Like, it's just interesting how it's shaped. Like, it's not what people would generally think, I'm guessing. But due to the angle of these sides like the angle of the sides of the pyramid versus its latitude, it casts no shadow at noon during the spring equinox, which is interesting. Like, this actually is more built east to north to west to south aligned to the compass than was it most skyscrapers or something like that. Like, how would they do this back in the day? Just have a guy holding up a stick over there? Anyway. No corner of its base is more than 1/2 inch higher or lower than the others. Considering that the pyramid's base covers as much as it does, this is near perfect leveling, that far exceeds even the finest architectural standards of modern time.
That's incredible. I mean, a 22-acre plot of stone, and it's all within a 1/2 inch of being perfectly level. And that's after at least 4,000, 5,000 years have passed. Who's to say that 1/2 inch hasn't changed? Maybe it was perfect in the beginning.
Just Bronze Agers doing Bronze Age things, right, Iodine?
Just Bronze Age things. While we were talking, I looked up the breaking strength of hemp rope. The thickest hemp rope I could find was only 20 millimeters. 20 millimeters will break when it's under 2 tons of pressure.
Yeah, the position of the North Pole moves over time, and it's said that the pyramid was exactly aligned at one time, and it still faces true north with only 3/60th of a degree of error. And like we talked about, there'll be some settling or this and that over time, but I guess when it was built, it was as perfect as it could be, aligned to north, you know. All right. The word pyramid actually is composed of Greek words pyra, meaning fire, light, or visible, and the word midos, meaning measures. Let's go deeper in terms of looking for extraordinary mathematical measures and oddities in light of this. All right, what are we going to be illuminated to find looking into this? First of all, do you know what squaring the circle means? Like, these two yellow outlines are the same length. Like, if you put a tape measure around the square and then put a tape measure around the circle, it's the same length. And you can see how, with that in mind, the pyramid, the angle, that triangle fits perfectly into that, as you can see from this image.
And this was considered an unsolvable mathematical problem for many centuries. So it would have been, if it's unsolvable, then it would have been difficult to detect that it's present in the Great Pyramid. But now that squaring the circle has been solved, we can see that it was already known by the time the Great Pyramid was constructed.
I propose this relationship's part of the reason why that pyramid, that's so aesthetically pleasing. When you look at that triangle compared to some other triangle shapes, does that one not seem so like sure, so comfortable?
That might sound very weird, but very rock solid, you know, in a way.
Don't you just love the shape of that triangle right there? It just looks
well,
so
when we look
solid,
at other pyramids, you know, we know that there were engineering concerns around, oh, it's going to cave in or it's going to fall over, all these things. I mean, I don't know why in retrospect they were worried. I mean, look at the pyramids in South America have like a 70-degree angle and they're still standing. But yeah, I do find the slope of the Great Pyramid to be quite ideal. It feels stable. It feels scalable. You know, it can. I feel like if they wanted to, they could have made it even bigger, but obviously that wasn't desired.
And now this obviously predated the ancient Greeks by quite some time. So, who knew about pi before the ancient Greeks? You know, I guess somebody did. Even if mainstream academia will try to suppress it. You know, they might try to pick at this digit or here or there, like where, as you can see, I mean, how could you be even closer than that? I guess this is kind of a helping show the squaring the circle concept in a 3D form.
It's even more incredible in 3D.
Right. But yeah, the vertical height of the pyramid holds the same relationship to the perimeter of its base, distance around the pyramid, as the radius of a circle bears to its circumference. If we equate the height of the pyramid to the radius of a circle, then the distance around the pyramid is equal to the circumference of that circle. Now, I'm not a huge math guy. I did pass calculus, but just gifts like this might help put it into the, you know, help the common person understand it a little better, I guess. And not only is pi incorporated into it, but what's also known as tau or 2 pi somehow found a way to be incorporated into this as well. The perimeter to its base. What a beautiful thing. Alright, not only pi and not only tau, but would you believe phi, it's not only incorporated in the king's chamber, but the actual pyramid itself as well?
I've learned not to be surprised anymore when I find phi in an ancient building, but that is very cool.
Alright, now if there are people who don't understand what that means, let's look at this for a second. Notice, let me break out the mouse arrow right here. Alright, if you take the length of B, right, that is, oh wait, where is that? If you take B and you, okay, the length of 1/2 of the base and the length of the full apothem, which is the whole outward line right here. See, this full and the half of the base then you take half the base and you divide it by that 610 right here. You get to this number right here. Do you notice anything interesting about this number right here?
Why, that's the number that you get whenever you divide some Fibonacci numbers.
Like, how much should these guys know? I guess I shouldn't even assume guys. I don't know if more than one even built it. I guess we'll talk more about the who and the why later, but let's just.
I think it's a very fair question to ask who built the pyramids. I don't think that the it's a shoo-in that it was just the Egyptians.
All right. This is just kind of showing the square, the circle thing again. We'll get into more about why this image is here and then why the moon's incorporated as well in just a bit, but okay, more squaring the circle talk, more of this triangle and how it fits inside here, like we were talking about a bit ago. But get this, Iodine, did you know that the ratio from the moon to the Earth is a 7-to-11 ratio? Or I'm sorry, 3-to-11.
I was familiar with that already. That it's a 3-to-11 ratio.
Yeah.
If the moon is a 3 in terms of diameter, then the Earth is an 11. But what's blowing my mind right now is the fact that if the pyramid were large enough to go from one end of the Earth to the other, right across the equator, then the tip of the pyramid would be exactly at the midpoint of the moon. How do you make all of these different mathematical constants all work at the same time?
I mean, so did whoever built this know the size of the moon compared to the size of the Earth?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I don't like saying it's a coincidence, because to me that's a type of conspiratorial thinking, is saying something is a coincidence. This looks intentional to me. I think we've previously verified this by going on, NASA.com and stuff like that, and just checking the numbers, and the numbers do work out. So I would say that this is strong proof that whoever built the pyramid knew the circumference of the Earth and the circumference of the moon. Now, I'll give you that you can figure out the circumference of the Earth while you're on Earth using like sticks and shadows, and the Greeks proved it. So definitely you can know certain things while you're on the Earth. How they knew the circumference of the moon or the diameter of the moon, absolutely ridiculous. There is not a single scientific way that I can think of that a person could learn that information in the Bronze Age. It's impossible given our current understanding of the Bronze Age.
Now you want to add a little nugget on top. Do you remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared back in school, the Pythagorean triangle?
Absolutely.
What if I told you this red triangle is the one? Like, did whoever built the Great Pyramid also build the moon and the Earth and fit all this together? Why would this be such a profound shape and geometry and also fit right in with all this?
The more I learn about the Great Pyramid, the more I am tempted to say, yes, the same person that built the Earth and the Moon built the Great Pyramid. Maybe God built all three of them. Maybe that's the simplest answer.
For what comes soon. But now you see this number right here. You have to keep in mind, how much would the casing stones affect this? So this might be, if you look for the skeptic answer, if you guys leave this video and you're like, well, how do they explain this and that? They might say it's a little bit off. But where does the casing stones fit into everything, That would just be the difference, right? Exactly, to make it. And this is just, that might just be talking about the squaring the circle thing.
When we're doing symbolism, after you get past 99.9%, I'm happy. If we're talking symbolism, it doesn't need to be 100%. 99.9 is just fine.
Especially when there's a whole bunch of them stacked on top of each other.
Exactly. 20 plus back to back. Yeah, it's convincing to me.
All right, this is just another image kind of tying some of the things up. Pythagorean triangle. The size of the pyramid, 51.51 degrees, or 51.51. the phi thing incorporated into it, squaring the circle thing, and then also the moon compared to the Earth shape. More of similar. All right, NASA.gov. You brought this up yourself a bit ago. For anyone who's skeptical that it's not really the Earth and Moon aren't really in a 3 to 11 relationship, who's the more Snopes type answer than NASA.gov itself when it comes to astronomy? 3 divided by 11 is 0.27. NASA.gov, volumetric mean radius, exactly 0.2727 here.
I appreciate that they provide the ratio too. I don't even have to do any math on 6371 and 1737. So
Now,
it's right there for you.
For anybody who's confused what this means, that's actually wider around the equator than it is the poles, because that's just how planets kind of work. Like, it's a spheroid, like, because it's spinning or whatever. I don't know if it's actually, I don't think the Earth is spinning. That's a different whole different show maybe. But I guess it's just kind of flattened from the north to the south pole. So this is like the mean. Like, if you made it into a perfect circle, the Earth, it would be that compared to the moon, according to NASA, I guess. All right. Earth, Moon, and Phi. This is another little mind blower type thing just to add in here. But you extended the circle's radius in orange out from the Earth to the middle line that the moon creates. If the radius of Earth is 1, the radius of the larger orange circle is phi.
That's out of control. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I guess that's not as much pyramid related, and that's still similar topic, you know. But as you can see, 3 to 11, just like NASA says, Pythagorean triangle. How much more clear can it be, people? And did you know Leonardo da Vinci incorporated this into his famous artwork right here?
Absolutely amazing that he was aware of this.
Was he possessed? Like, what did this guy know? Vitruvian Man.
Well, he might have been the leader of some secret societies back in his day.
I guess he was showing himself that he was squaring the circle, because this is his own artwork right here when it comes to this circle and this other square back here. But if you add the Earth and the Moon and the Great Pyramid to it, notice how well it all fits in. The circle that would represent the Earth fits exactly inside his square right here. And then if you add the triangle shape of the Great Pyramid right here, it comes to the middle of what the moon would be in this relationship. And notice where the top of his head is with the square. It's just amazing, man. Like, how many people know about this kind of stuff?
I think everyone has seen this drawing, but I don't think many people know what squaring the circle is, and I think even fewer people know that it has a relationship to our world and to other celestial objects.
And how would Da Vinci have any idea what size the moon was, let alone compared to the Earth in his day?
Might have been a lot of knowledge handed down in the earlier ages that we don't really give them credit for.
What an interesting universe, brother. All right, this one might just be not necessarily the most scientific, but it's just kind of interesting how it fits into some of the most key areas of the brain too, like the way this is laid out with this tunnel down here.
This is just one of those fun things.
But
I love how the artist also put the prismatic effect on the grand gallery, equating with the eye. Yeah, it's just genius.
I'm not sure it's coincidence. Like, what's the more, I don't know. Anyways, it's just one of the more fun ones, I guess. All right, let's talk about the golden spiral a little bit. Is that I guess most people are familiar with the shape. They see shells with it and different things, right?
Tell people the significance of the golden spiral and how it's found everywhere.
Well, we got some pictures coming up related to that, but yeah, it's not only found in the spiral like that, but the golden numbers are found too, like in our for even in like the ratios between the digits of our fingers, like compared to our hand and stuff. But this is basically how it works, all right? Like, see how this is a 1 right here, and this is a 1 right here. What do you do? What do you do when you add 2 plus 1? You get 3, right? When you add 2 plus 3, you get 5. When you add 3 plus 5, you get 8. When you add 5 plus 8, you get 13. When you get 13 plus 8, you get 21, right?
And it just keeps going like that forever, right?
It just keeps going on forever and ever. But you know what's
And
interesting about the origins of it, though? Where'd this 1 come from? What added 0 plus 0 equals 1? That might almost... If you can't write a sermon off of that... What do you
Yeah,
think?
you're right. 0 plus 0 is 0. So where did the first 1 come from in
This
the
particular
Fibonacci
grid.
sequence?
It's like... That's the only one that doesn't work, right? Because even if you take 0 plus 1, it brings you 1. But where did this original 1 right here come from? It's just another one of those things that can make you say, Another little... Now this is, the spiral added to this grid we were just talking about. But now get this. How many people realize how much this is found in nature? See the ram's horn right here? See the human
The ram's
brain?
horn might be one of my favorite examples because a ram's horn grows throughout the ram's life, and it's mass that gets heavier. And the ram, because the horn is growing in the Fibonacci sequence, the ram doesn't need to learn how to rebalance his head as the volume of this horn scales up. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the ram still is able to retain his original balance from when he was younger. And it's only because of the scalable nature of this Fibonacci sequence. It's incredible. There's plenty more places where it's found in nature. If people reject like the one of it being overlaid on a face, for example, there's incontrovertible proof in seashells and storms.
How about even the ear? Look at that. Look at the ear. Some people might go overboard referring to some things, but like you said, how can you deny some of them? Like the way this flower is, that's...
Yeah, sunflowers have it. All types of sunflowers arrange their seeds in this way, and also aloe vera plants, as well as many other succulents, also arrange their leaves in this way. So it's found in nature. In fact, I've never found an animal that does not have the Fibonacci number in it somewhere, somehow.
It's interesting, brother.
Humans have it. We'll get to that.
All right. Now, what if we just let's say we take the Great Pyramid for a second. All right. What if we just started extending a Fibonacci spiral? We started up the top, just kept, because this is the same curve the whole time. It's infinity curve. If we keep the same curve, if you're driving in a car, you make the wheels stay at the same exact angle. It comes right to about here. If people might have knew about the golden spiral a while ago, but imagine just trying to draw it over this, thinking, oh, what if there's something significant right there? Maybe not. I guess there's middle of the base here, top of here. But what if I told you it goes right into the very heart of the King's Chamber, deeper and deeper and deeper into the granite Kofer box we were just talking about?
So not only does the spiral start at the very top of the pyramid and then terminate directly in the King's Chamber, but it terminates inside the box in the King's Chamber. So wow. So a human laying down in the box in the King's Chamber would essentially be, direct and front and center to whatever kind of energies are present in this Fibonacci spiral. I don't know if any energies are present in Fibonacci spirals, but there's something going on. How did they get this aligned? Why would it be aligned? I guess this is an answer for anyone who's ever wondered, why is the King's Chamber not in the middle? The Queen's Chamber is perfectly in the middle, right? But the King's Chamber is not in the middle, and people have always wondered, why is it not in the middle? This is, as far as I know, the best explanation on planet Earth for why it's not in the middle. They were trying to incorporate the Fibonacci sequence, or the golden spiral, the golden ratio,
into the design. It's incredible.
And it's also said that if you were laying inside the box and your head was to the north, then your head would be right in like the end of the vanishing point or of the spiral or something like that. Isn't that interesting? Maybe Napoleon might have had his head right up in that when he was dreaming before he left shocked or whatever.
And then notice also how the spiral nestles nicely up against that center line. It's so clean.
Which center line? Oh,
the spiral when it's
Right here.
curving back,
Yeah.
it kisses the center line, but it doesn't transgress it. So
Right.
that's amazing.
Yeah, it does that right there, and then it also yeah.
So they might have used the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio to essentially determine the size of the pyramid, starting from the king's chamber and working backwards.
I don't know what exactly they did, but I'm just kind of blown away just in general. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the speed of light. Okay, 2.299,792,458. This is metric system, so the decimal's kind of insignificant. You can just move it. Kangaroos hopping down mountain drinking chocolate milk, right? Who remembers that from grade school?
But ancient nostalgia. The metric system was not invented yet when the pyramid was built. What would you say to that?
Well, it's going to be pretty amazing once we talk about what's coming up next. Check this out. Google itself. Search what is the speed of light. Search the Great Pyramid latitude. First 6 digits. What do you see?
An exact match.
Right now. These 3 extra numbers. People are like, "What are these 3 extra numbers?" That's just in addition to. Let's go look at this right on a satellite viewer for a moment, all right? All right. Why don't we go ahead and get the longitude about lined up, right? Here's the Great Pyramid way down here. Let's try to get as close as we can get to the specific speed of light. What do you think about that? Up here in the latitude. See where it might take us a little bit to the pyramid, right? If it comes to the side, that's pretty cool, but let's see how close it gets to the middle of this very center of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, I don't know how close you're going to be able to get.
All right, 299,792,458. Now this might only go to 6 digits here, so let's go 299,7. Wait, how many digits? No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits, right? 22, 9, 6 plus 2, that's 8, I guess. Okay, 29299. Now let's type in the rest. 299,792,46. 299,792,46 with the 5/8 rounded up to 6. All right, let's see how close this gets to the center of the Great Pyramid. Iodine.
So it's an exact match, in other words.
What in the world, brother? All right, now, yeah, it looks like the center's right here, but that's just the angle. What we need to look at is the actual base, because that's just how satellite stuff works. How much closer can you get to this? Dude, there's only one number that's the speed of light, right? This could have been anywhere. This could have been at some guy's house up here, some apartment, some little restaurant down here. No, the speed of light itself, brothers, right in the center of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, if it seems like that is the exact center if we use the base as the reference point, because looking at that right-hand side of the pyramid, it's super short and the left side is super long. So clearly, we're not looking at the tip of the pyramid is clearly not the middle. From the angle that we're viewing it, because we're viewing it from one side.
So yeah, it seems like an exact match. Even, I mean, who even uses this kind of resolution in longitude and latitude? Most people stop after a few sig figs, right? They put a few decimal points in there and they stop 3 or 4 decimals. That's more than enough for anybody. Going all the way with this number, it takes you right to the middle. I would guess it's probably the king's chamber. To be honest with you, right in the middle of the king's chamber is where I would guess these coordinates take you to. So, but it still bothers me that the speed of light in meters per second was not yet known, nor was
the metric
meters
system
per
in
second
general.
invented yet.
The metric system in general was allegedly not invented till way after even the mainstream dates for the pyramid. So a lot of people might come at us as that as an attack, though. Like, oh, how could it be? That didn't exist. But is that not impressive to you? If
it's only more impressive, and we find all these other ratios which are clearly intentionally inserted into the Great Pyramid. When we find this ratio, I don't see any reason to say that it was not intentional. I'm more compelled to ask, what is the real history of, say, the metric system, or are we dealing with a constructor of the Great Pyramid who maybe is not bound by the same things that we are? I mean, I personally believe that God can see the future. So, if God were the one that built the Great Pyramid, he would know that the metric system will be invented in the future.
And it's not only, it's like you're getting at, it's not only that whoever built it, there's pretty hardcore evidence that they were able to see into the future. It's almost like they had a particular sign written just for us, or made just for us, knowing that we, like, even using our metric system in the future. Like, what are they trying to tell us? If we were way ahead of their time if they were just a normal person stuck inside time, yet they were communicating to us in the future, showing us they knew what our metric system was. Or what else could it be?
The more I think about it, the more I lean towards something like that. You know that I don't personally believe aliens are real. Or I don't believe that they exist. So my explanations are either somehow the ancient Egyptians knew all this, even things that weren't invented yet. I mean, it's not just a question of, oh, I'm really smart, so I discovered how to deduce pi, right? That's reasonable. That can happen. But guessing that someone in the future will make something called the metric system, and then guessing how it will work with accuracy, and then constructing a building that encodes the speed of light in a vacuum to correspond to your building based on a system that doesn't even exist yet, that's impossible. So
also, what we haven't touched on is they knew where the pyramid was located on the Earth if they knew the latitude, because that's how many degrees in a 360-degree circle it is up from the equator.
That's incredible. Is that part of this week's slideshow?
Well, actually, it might
is that a teaser for next week?
That might be in this one, actually, or be shown in one of more image more clearly coming up. But let's touch on this other scripture right here. If it basically tells us that the Creator, like you were getting at, is set signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, even unto this day. What is that a hint of back there in the days of Jeremiah? This was a time when, I guess around the time they were enemies with Egypt, or they had conflicts or whatever else. Why would Jeremiah write that he had set signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, even unto this day? What was he talking about?
Yeah, that's by that point, the Israelites had been out of Egypt, away from Egypt for quite some time, and they were told not to return. What are they talking about? What are the signs and wonders in Egypt?
It's just an interesting little thing to throw in, even unto this day. But
and so you think it's this essentially?
I guess it's related to that, yeah. But we might get into that more in some later videos. But doesn't it make sense that with all the stuff we're talking about, it pretty much is like a sign of his sovereignty and his seeing outside of time, and on and on.
I'll buy that. I mean, the more I learn about it, the more ready I am to accept that maybe it was built by God and not mankind.
Just wait until we get to some
A witness in
stuff later
stone.
on too. Now this video is not gonna get in too deeply into some of the other evidence that points specifically at the creator, the Abrahamic deity, but we'll get to it eventually if we make our way through the videos. And I think people, if they're interested in this video, will be very interested in future pyramid videos as well. Just what a beaut, you know? These people living back in antiquity, just seeing that in the distance, having no idea how much was incorporated into it. Or I guess some of them might have more than others. Who knows how that works? But maybe there was a little bit of spirit contact going on back then too. I don't know, but what a structure. All right, what are we looking at here? Now, these limestone blocks, like you can see now that the casing stone's removed, that there's different layers. Well, the King's Chamber is right on the 50th course level, right? Now, if you add up all these degrees right here from the King's Chamber, this is getting back to how significant of a location you think it's in. You add up all these, it also takes you to 50. Isn't that interesting? All these degrees. How could you fit all this stuff into one structure, brother?
Right. That's what's so confusing to me is anyone can hide one or two things in a structure, but we might have like 50 or 100 things that we need to go through. And that's too many for me. I just don't buy that these are coincidences or even possible to do intentionally. I'm not aware of any other buildings in history that have fit this much in.
That's amazing. All right. Now, the Queen's Chamber, the one that's in the center you were talking about, 23.5 courses high. Now check out this. That's actually 23.5 degrees between it and the King's Chamber, or the floor of each, I guess. See that? 23.5 degrees. And then also from that angle on the bottom left is 23.5 as well to the King's Chamber. But what's significant about 23.5 though?
Oh, that might be the angle of the Earth.
the way that the Earth, it's either the way the Earth's tilted, if the Earth's tilted, or it's also in general related to the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, which is where the extent that the sun goes in the winter and the summer on the horizon, or compared to the equator. Tropic. But anyways, okay. Now what are we looking at here? The sum value of the two shafts combined is 102.4. These two shafts are these tiny little shafts that enter the King's Chamber. The King's Chamber shafts exit at the 102nd course level. It's just another example where the course level is also equal to something angle-wise that's going on inside there.
That's incredible.
All right, what was this one about? 9 units. I should have looked more into this one, but okay. See what this is? See this line? See the length of this right here? Like where these little tunnels we were just talking about? That's 198 cubits in length, right? From the center of the King's Chamber down at the base of the pyramid to the outside is also that many. Isn't that interesting?
Huh.
And then you have...
It's wild.
Then you have one more unit and then 11 more units right here. Okay, but so yeah. It's just one thing after another. It's like what mathematical genius incorporated all this stuff in here? Alright, getting back to 23.5. This is the standard Earth model, mainstream Earth model. Whether you just look at it as it's really tilted or whether you just take the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, either way it's relevant. Now, the Great Pyramid, like we said before, it's about 30 degrees, like we said, the speed of light, 29.9 or whatever. This basically the difference between 30 and the actual latitude's pretty much insignificant when you look at a scale like this. But anyways, just keep this in mind right here, right? This is the ecliptic pole. This is the other, this is the equatorial plane. Now just remember where all these lines are before we get to this next image. Okay, this is pretty much the same thing. Celestial pole, ecliptic pole, the equator, the ecliptic plane, this location. Now check this out. Check out this next image. The Great Pyramid itself also incorporates all this because
Wow.
you look down here, this is where the celestial pole would be, this one corner, going up straight through the king's chamber, right? And then if you throw the equator in there, it takes you to the floor of the queen's chamber. And then straight up the ecliptic plane. But check this out. Then the capstone is where the pyramid would be if this circle was the earth. It's like the capstone is representing where the location of the pyramid would be on the earth.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the equator.
That's incredible.
It's about 30 degrees away from the equator. Yep. It's just one thing after another, brother. This is just more of the same, except right side up. You can see how the capstone is represented. It's just amazing. But yeah, next time, why don't we get into some more, tie it more into what our theories of what it is, even though we just touched on some of the basics facts in this video. But I look forward to doing the next show, man. I feel like you kind of hinted at something what's coming next, and we might touch on one or more other topic, maybe talk about some other stuff first. But let's come back to this pretty soon and get into the why more so than the what next time, I guess.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. I love discussing this stuff with you, and I'm hoping that our conversations can really help the viewers as well. It's only going to get weirder from here, folks, so strap in.
Let's do it again, man. Thanks for being here.
Creator willing. God bless.
Take care.